little more recently than some of us. This is the place where the first pacemaker was made. This is the reason why we transplant hearts. This is the place where the first stent was put in somebody's vasculature. This is the place where my day job, pediatric oncology, started and bone marrow transplant. This is why science saves lives. And it's public health, it's vet med, it's all the health science schools, and engineering, law, everybody makes a contribution. So the reason we are here today is that there is the uncertainty that is permeating this. I sort of take a larger view of this. Our times are actually no different than any other in history. Just our pain points are a little different than others, and it is yours, mine, and everybody else's active responsibility to act in a logical, rational, and most of all, pragmatic way to go forward. So do I flip the slides, or who flips the slides? Okay, I'm signaling. I'm not drowning. I look like I am, but I'm waving. So the next slide, please. So the challenge is, again, you have seen it. The research economy is very uncertain with the NIH cuts and federal changes in funding. The Medicaid alone will displace about $1 trillion from the federal funding over the next 10 years. This is millions and millions of people who will go uninsured. And just stating the obvious, the fact that people don't have health insurance doesn't mean that they don't get sick. They will still show up in our hospital, and we will still take care of them. So a lot of these things sort of are coming to us with the access to care, urban and rural. And in this context, you should see that the agreement between the M physicians and Fairview provides clinical arrangement, and it is incomplete. It is incomplete because it does not have the academic portions that we need to have. And I'll get to the context and the history of this a little down the road. But the challenge here is that we have negotiated a very good agreement. We call it Joint Clinical Enterprise 2018. So it's been about 6 years. And the new agreement with the M physicians, which is the practice of the physicians that we have at the university, has taken out several of the functions that we really, really need. Leadership of the academician is one. The ability to get governance seats for the university on the system level, and the level of what we call academic support. Academic support is the number of dollars that you get from the clinical system, and every medical school, every health science schools in the country are funded in a way by clinical dollars, and that is what we are asking to get from the system. And it is my hope that we will be able to bring the parties together and insert these academic and university functions into what has been done so far. Now, the operating under pressure, of course, is because it matters to all of us, and the compounded weight of that is on the workforce shortages, and everything that I know about the affiliations, and we have about 2,000 of them on the clinical space, hinges on trust and on relationships. Now, the current clinical enterprise is still going to go for about 13 months now, and I know that many of you have questions about what it actually means and why is it that we have not yet accomplished the confluence of all three parties. The history is important, so I'll show some of that. And here it is. So nearly 30 years ago, in 1997, the university entered into the first agreement with the Fairview Health and transferred the university hospital building or buildings now to Fairview. At the same time that M physicians, that UMP, University of Minnesota physicians that I talked about, the physician practice came to being, and it was as if the 27 departments we have in a medical school, they had their own contract, so we wanted to have one contracting body, and that's how this came together. Over the next decade or so, we were really, quote unquote, physicians at. We were not employed by the system, but we were really practicing in a building, that has been operated and owned by Fairview Health. Then several enlightened individuals came to the leadership and were able to open the door a little bit and bring more iteration to these agreements. And about 15 years ago, we had a first what we call integrated structure and the first brand that we called mHealth. And then, as I said, 2018, 2017, 2018, we came together with the leadership of Fairview Health. And a major step forward was this joint clinical enterprise that provided the joint leadership, not just on the top, but really through the entire 8 billion system. So we were able to provide what we are here to do. We have, you can look, on the web, and you will see this. The practice itself is about 1 billion revenue. The safety and quality has been in a top quartile for the first time ever. And the research support that I mentioned has been instrumental in us moving the medical school from high 30s in what we call Blue Ridge, which is the amount of NIH dollars that we compete for with other schools, to the top 25 for 4 years running. And the function that really matters to the patients and to the clinicians is, can we get that science that I mentioned at the beginning to the bedside? And the way we do this is a clinical trial. So we started with about 1,000 trials. We increased it to 1,500 trials. We enrolled about 20,000 people when we started. Now we enroll 63,000 people. And as an oncologist, I can tell you that the survival of somebody with cancer is about 20%, 1/5 better if she's treated on the trial and not according to the trial. And I can explain why. So what happened then is that COVID hit, and there were major changes, financial and otherwise, in the system. And then everything else has been in the news. Fairview system reached out to Sanford Health, not Stanford, but Sanford Health, which is in Dakotas and partly in Minnesota. The university objected strenuously and offered to buy the hospitals back. And then in November of 2023, the Fairview notified the university that it would not renew the existing agreements. There is this provision that you have to tell the other party 3 years before the agreement expires. And in this way, they noted that the financial commitment that they have been providing to the university, the health science schools, medical school included, is unsustainable from their perspective. So I'll ask now the AHC Council to continue, and then I'll come back to the lectern.
And welcoming in Council Jennifer Losi. And for this part of the presentation, I think, thank you, Dean Toller, very much for the history and the timeline. And for this, the Senate and shared governance asked, and hopefully you'll give us some enlightenment into. So what does it mean, and what should we all understand about what the deal was that was put on the table recently, and what would it mean for the medical school? What would it mean for faculty? What would it mean for the health science schools? And what do we know and what do we don't know? So thank you for coming today to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you so much, faculty senators, for having me here, really to discuss an important topic. I know that it's also been in the news a lot, and so thank you for also being interested in it. Like President Cunningham says, I'm from the Office of General Counsel, and I represent the academic health centers. And I'm grateful for a chance to meet with you, because as a public university, our values of transparency and shared governance are extremely important. And at the same time, there are aspects of what is going on right now that are confidential and we can't discuss in this forum. But I hope to clarify our position on the current situation with physicians in Fairview, as well as a potential path forward for us. So a little bit of detail, picking up for where Dean Toller left off, are the various proposals that have been proffered since the 2003 notice from Fairview. So in February of 2004, Fairview and the university did enter into a letter of intent with the express intention of negotiating what a new academic health system would look like, understanding Fairview's concerns, understanding the university's needs. And the teams really worked together over the next 9 months to effectuate that letter of intent. And unfortunately, about 9 months later, the letter of intent was terminated. About a month later, so in December of 2024, the university put forth a proposal that would essentially to buy back the university hospitals and other facilities that were transferred in 1997. And, but that did not come to fruition. The offer was rejected. There was not a counter offer. But the university has been committed to the mission of teaching, research, clinical care, and therefore really needed to find a new path forward for the medical school. And really to that end, came up with the All Minnesota proposal in partnership with Essentia Health. And that proposal was presented to Fairview, which Fairview did not accept. A couple weeks later, the university also made another offer, which was for the Clinic and Surgical Center. But again, that offer was not accepted. Also, as you might recall, 2025 has been a busy year for all of the goings-on. The Attorney General appointed a strategic facilitator to really guide the conversation between the university, Fairview, and Essentia to find a path forward. And there's a number of really important goals that are in the Attorney General's charter to the strategic facilitator. And the university and Fairview and physicians really responded to that charge and provided the strategic facilitator with full access.
Excuse me,
Oh.
do you want these slides to be?
Oh, yeah, shoot, I forgot that I was signaling.
Just say next slide.
Okay, all right. Apologies, I forgot I was signaling. Yeah, the parties really responded. There was a lot of information that was exchanged with the strategic facilitator. Personnel provided tours to inform the strategic facilitator of the needs of the parties. And those individual meetings really went on for months. And during that process, the university made several proposals to Fairview, including a renewed proposal to purchase the university hospitals and facilities. We also presented a joint venture proposal, and unfortunately those proposals were not accepted either. And in September of 2025, after meeting for a couple of weeks with Fairview, the university and physicians, the Attorney General's office did declare an impasse and directed the parties to submit an unsigned report. The university responded in a letter to the Attorney General at that point, affirming its stance that the university is not resigned to an impasse and or really supportive of an unwind and asked to continue negotiations. After this communication, it's our understanding that the Attorney General's office directed physicians to negotiate directly with Fairview with the assistance of the strategic facilitator to create an agreement on a clinical agreement for the clinical work. And as oh, I'm sorry, I'll move it along. So as expressed in the Board of Regents meeting in November, this instruction was outside of the strategic facilitation charter. You can go on to the next slide. You know, we have received information that M Health and Fairview have now independently negotiated an agreement without the university's involvement. And it's important to understand that as of today, we still, we being the university, have still not received that 30-page agreement to review closely or even in detail. However, it was briefly discussed in a meeting between M Health Physicians and with M Health Physicians and Fairview last month. Health Physicians does not have the authority to negotiate contracts on behalf of the university. And as we understand the agreement, and of what is concerned to us is that the agreement extends well beyond the clinical and operational issues related to Health and Fairview, and in particular does make commitments regarding academic support, education, and research, which are solely the purview of the university and the medical school. The university is also concerned that the proposal fails to address some of the urgent needs of Minnesota, particularly in workforce. And in terms of agreement, next slide. In terms of the agreement, as we understand them, they go further than a typical clinical agreement. They fundamentally change how the medical school receives funding, how decisions about investments at the university hospitals are made, who has reporting and operational control at the faculty practice, and the clinical operations. And these are things that really impact our ability to educate Minnesota's future workforce and invest in research and medical discoveries that give patients hope. Our understanding of the proposal is that, as it was verbally relayed to us and provided at a high level summary, is that it would destabilize funding for the medical school, as less than half of the funds are assured and the rest are based solely on financial performance of Fairview. They do not address the underfunding of facilities and equipment over the past years, and they strip the university of decision-making and governance that affect clinical care, research, and education. And, all of that translates to threatening the stability of the schools that provide 70% of Minnesota's health professionals. As also addressed at the November Regents meeting, and as we understand the term, there are some proposed governance shifts that are likely to diminish the role of the medical school and medical school leadership compared to the current partnership. For example, the 3 regent representatives on the Fairview board would be eliminated, and Health would instead nominate 2 representatives. With that change, the dean of the medical school would be removed ex officio from the vice chair and voting seats on the Fairview board. And we believe that this significantly diminishes or even totally eliminates the role of the dean in the clinical enterprise as opposed to the current arrangement. Next slide. The university is committed to achieving a timely solution that is both practical and extraordinary. The university has been very consistent that any agreement must have critical components required to sustain and grow our tripartite mission. These are our North Stars during the negotiation, and they include that the medical school must receive adequate academic support to remain a national leader, training Minnesota's future healthcare workforce and pioneering life-saving cures. University hospital facilities must be modernized to provide the very best possible care, while also providing a setting where doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and dentists, and others can train and work side by side. University oversight and governance of its facilities and clinical operations that carry our name and brand to ensure university-level excellence. The university academic physicians and medical school leaders must be actively involved in operations, and the Board of Regents must have governance in the main teaching facilities to assure that patient care aligns with our research and education missions. And finally, that the university academic physicians and clinicians must receive fair compensation in line with their status as world-class professors and researchers, and have a clear and effective way to resolve workplace disputes. Oh, am I done? Okay. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Dean Toller.
Yeah, maybe give her a 1-minute warning, since there's usually a 5-minute and then a 1-minute.
Oh, okay, excellent. I will go fast.
The next 60 seconds.
All right.
Yeah.
So we believe that these are practical objectives. Physician leadership played an integral role in crafting our proposals during the facilitation
Next
process.
slide. Next slide.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened.
All right.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead and finish up your vote.
Our proposals provided for clinical care continuity, promoted long-term health of the academic mission, addressed shared risk, decrease the burden on our hospital partner, invests capital, and truly supports the entire state of Minnesota in a time of great need, particularly in rural health. In other situations where the practice plan has moved under the control of the clinical enterprise and away from the university and its medical school, academic prominence and NIH rankings have suffered. In those cases, physicians are pressed to see more patients and be more clinically productive, reducing available time for education and research in the process. And with academic support to the medical school decreasing in parallel, the education and research missions suffer dramatically. One has to only look to several medical schools who have made this change to see disappointing results.
Yeah. Can you maybe give a closing remark here?
Yeah, no, thank you for your time on this important issue, and I'll turn it back to Dean Toller to wrap up the presentation.
Well,
Please.
I think,
Do 10
no,
seconds. Okay, so this is your university. Transparency, simplicity, and speed is incredibly important in this. Shine the light, on where you need this. Next slide. Engage, because as I said at the beginning, the moral coherence, the institutional backbone for the talent pool that we have here, and for the phenomenal ecosystem of collaborations hinges on you and rest of the faculty. So engage, ask the questions, and as they say at the Lindbergh Terminal, if you see something, say something. Thank you, Chair.
thank you both so much. The next part of this presentation that was requested by the Senate is from the Medical Schools Faculty Advisory Council. And I invite Professor Sasha Zagloff and additional members of the Executive Committee of the Med Schools Advisory Council to the podium.
Hello, everyone. Chair Cunningham, Provost Ritter, and to all of our fellow senators, thank you so much for being here and for giving us this space today. Next slide, please. As you see there, my name is Sasha Zagloff. I am a licensed child psychologist by training background, with my primary department home in psychiatry and behavioral sciences in the medical school. And I am particularly excited to Dean Toller's point about the really important role of interprofessionalism in healthcare, that the four of us who you will hear from today do in fact all represent 4 different training backgrounds contributing to the medical school. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of the faculty perspective of what are we here to talk about today, we are obviously not in a position to talk about the negotiations. So, thank you. Really want to make sure that everyone understands that while we are the medical school and the largest portion of our education is for physicians, the medical school faculty is deeply invested in the training of health professional students far beyond medicine, including nursing and pharmacy, and through interprofessional activities that I'll say a little bit more about on the next slide. In terms of research, as Dean Toller mentioned, clinical trials are the backbone of the research that we're doing. You will also hear from Dr. Langley a lot about additional research activities that your med school faculty are doing day in and day out. Oh, sorry, if we can go back one. I wasn't quite ready. Thank you. And then lastly, you will hear lots about the important clinical care that our faculty are doing as a major service to this institution and the state, across the state, importantly. Now, next slide. Thank you, Amber. Okay, so while the last slide suggested that those are 3 separate buckets of work that we do, which is why you'll have 3 different faculty speaking with you all, the reality is that they overlap. And so just really quickly, in the complex care space, as an example, I am deeply invested in the work of a young lady who's got many complicated medical conditions, including my line of work, which is chronic stress and PTSD as a young person. There is no literature specifically on what do you do if you have had chronic stress for 17 years and you sustain a concussion. And it is because of the incredible interprofessional work that we do here that I was able to collaborate with her physical therapist to come up with a concussion treatment that accounted for her chronic stress. Future healthcare providers, I said that my primary appointment home is in the Department of Psychiatry. I am lucky to have a joint appointment also in the Department of Pediatrics. because we train psychology interns, and so that is a really important partnership. Similarly, I have an adjunct appointment in the Department of Psychology in the College of Liberal Arts because we are training CLA PhD students every year through an M-Physicians program. And then in the innovation and research space, I am deeply involved with the Center for Interprofessional Health, which does cross all 6 academic health sciences, where my passion is, in fact, the training of our already practicing healthcare practitioners, physicians, nurses, pharmacists, dentists, public health professionals, and our vet medicine colleagues. Next slide, please. Okay, and so just who are we? There's some numbers up there. I don't need to read them to you, but we are an incredibly large college. We've got 27 departments. We're on multiple campuses. And importantly, we've got 33 senators. After these slides went live last night, I do want to acknowledge that it was brought to me that there's also the Faculty Advisory Committee on the Health Sciences Leadership. And so that is an incredibly important group that represents all health sciences schools. Existing documents do not have a specific relationship between us as the FAC and the medical school and the FACHS. So, but I will be working with the FAC to talk about what that partnership can look like moving forward. And with that, I will turn it over to our next speaker.
Next slide, please. I'm Aaron Corfield. I am a trained podiatrist. I am currently a faculty member here in the Department of Orthopedics. Next slide, please. So what I want you to get out of this slide is that this university trains about 70% of the doctors that practice here in Minnesota. So it's more likely than not that if you're seeing somebody here in Minnesota, if we're treating you, if we're treating your family, they're more likely to have some kind of training here at the University of Minnesota, whether it's through our medical school or through one of our residency or fellowship programs. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is important to us. This is where we train our students and residents. So on the left side here on the chart, you can see these exclude GME, so that's non-resident training. So this is where our students are learning medicine, clinical medicine. And we can see here that most of our students are learning medicine, clinical medicine at the University of Minnesota Medical Center, that's the East and West Bank hospitals, M Health Fairview clinics. Those are not the clinics that are the CSC, they're clinics like Maple Grove, where in my department, orthopedics, we get a lot of students rotating through. They're in clinics like Burnsville. They're in clinics outside in the community, so these students can get a very diverse patient population. We also train lots of students at Southdale Hospital, which is not a university hospital, it is a Fairview-owned hospital. We send, they have 696 rotations. If you look at the other column, these are where our residents train. So most of our residents get training at the university hospitals, East and West Bank, the clinics that are outside, that's places like Burnsville, Lakes, Maple Grove, and they train, residents are largely trained at the CSC, that is the Clinics and Surgery Center on Fulton Street, that's the big mothership, the glass building over there. So you can see from this that we need to send lots of our students out into the community. The CSC cannot handle all of the students that are in our medical school and all of the residents. So we send a lot of our students out to all of these other clinics. Next slide, please. We do this because over time, this agreement that we've had with Fairview has really been able to get these students a very diverse group of patients to see. When you see us, you expect that we have seen multiple different kinds of pathologies to be able to treat you. And we need to be able to send these students out into community hospitals and into community clinics to be able to see a diverse range of patients and a diverse range of pathologies to treat you and your families in all of Minnesota effectively. If there is an unwinding, which we've heard that there is not going to be an unwinding, this will be devastating to student and resident learners. As you can see, we send students and residents all over the state for training that will really destabilize any kind of training that we can give to students. It will affect how we as attendings can schedule patients, how we can see patients. So it's really critical that all three of these entities come together for an agreement. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little story. If people ask me where I work, I do not work at Fairview. I do not work at UMP. If just somebody asked me on the street, I'm a university doctor. And I think that what you will find, if you ask most of us where we work and what we do, we are university doctors first. The faculty wants this agreement to go through because that's how we identified. That is why I came to this job 10 years ago, is I wanted to be a university doctor. I currently have a continuity clinic that I help with one resident from physical medicine and rehab, and then I have rotating residents. I do early clinical education with first-year students where I teach them to take histories from patients and write notes. And then I see third and fourth years who are rotating through orthopedics because that's what they think that they want to do as a residency program. This is our job. Our job is to educate students. We as faculty are not in the job of, we're not in the job of working for Fairview, which we know that we do, but we are university doctors first and foremost. And I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, President Cunningham. Thank you, senators and colleagues, for being here today. My name is Christophe Langlais. I am a professor in the Department of Radiology, and I'm also the chair of the research subcommittee from the Faculty Advisory Council. Research at the med school really extends from basic science to clinical and translational research. That means where scientific discoveries are moved from the lab to real-world practice. Yes. So the University Academic Research Partnership provides patients access to cutting-edge therapies that improve quality of care and innovation. So for example, here you can see that, yes, we're a top-tier research institution, and we attract millions of dollars every year in NIH funding. And you can really see why in these 2 bullet points, a partnership, a clinical partnership is crucial to what we do in terms of research and discovery. First, innovation in the lab must be tested in clinical trials. A partner provides that infrastructure to actually do it. Learning health system, our partnership also allows us to use de-identified information to push things forward, to learn more, to develop better treatments, better cures. So we must work together to preserve and protect our research mission. Next, please. This is an example of a few, some data about clinical research. You could see that there's nearly 1,000 active med school studies, like Dean Toller was talking about earlier, with over 60,000 potential participants. Nearly 250 of these were funded by NIH with almost 18,000 enrollees. And on the right side, you can see how these collaborations actually happens through various entities like CTSI, the Office of Research and Innovation, Fairview, UMP, and all of these together make that happen. So this collaborative, team-based approach is extremely important. Next, please. Why do we need a stable and efficient research environment? Well, collaborative research is really research. That's what we do with clinicians, scientists, engineers, but also industry and academic partners within and outside the medical school. This is really critical. And so continuing these negotiations and building on the proposed agreement is really key to the continued success of the academic mission of the medical school. Next, please. I'm going to give you a little bit of, a very brief story about what I do. My work is about understanding the effect of neurodegeneration and to discover novel biomarkers using MRI for the central nervous system. And so the way we do this is based on imaging. This is the core. The university is a leader to develop cutting-edge technologies for this. What we do is we develop computational methods and we apply this to look at the brain and spinal cord. We can only do this through collaborations. And these collaborations, for example, are with our colleagues from the med school, neurology, neuroscience, neurosurgery, psychology, the Institute for the Developing Brain, but also the dental school, the College of Science and Engineering, biostatistics, and academic partners and clinical collaborators and industry. Currently, I'm involved in several international studies where we look at COVID, ALS, traumatic brain injury, and various clinical trials. And again, this is through a strong collaboration. And so I want to reemphasize the point that we need to keep these collaborations going and to make sure we preserve that strength at the university.
Thank you so much for having us, and to my fellow presenters. My name is Andrew Olson. I'm a professor in the medical school. I'm an internist and pediatrician and practice clinically as a hospitalist and conduct diagnostic safety and clinical reasoning research. I understand how we make diagnoses. You can go to the next slide. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Ann Blaze, who directs our division of hematology, oncology, and transplantation. She's an oncologist who, with world-renowned expertise in the care of patients who have and have had breast cancer and survivorship. Her work is nothing short of remarkable. So I'm here to talk about my life's work, which is clinical care, which is inseparable from research and education. I'm a university doctor. I do my clinical care in partnership and my research in partnership and my education in partnership. But I'm delighted to do this work and talk to you about it. So we believe that we serve the state. I worked last evening in the hospital and took calls from all over the state of Minnesota, in fact outside as well, about patients trying to come. There's usually a couple dozen patients waiting to come to our university hospital, seeking access to those cures and that care that they need. However, healthcare is only done in the present state in partnership. I am a university physician, but I can only deliver healthcare with my colleagues in partnership with other healthcare organizations. And so I walked into work last night at a hospital owned by Fairview, but it didn't really matter who worked for who. We did remarkable things. You can go to the next slide, please. So just to give a footprint of where we are in clinical care, our partnership with Fairview, as you've seen, is long-standing, and certainly we aren't here to comment on those negotiations, but we do want to give a current footprint of where we are. We have healthcare happening with university employed physicians across the state and in 60 clinics, 10 hospitals, and in fact we have input in some of the aspects of clinical care across the state in those hospitals as well. We have world-renowned expertise in a few specific areas, well, many specific areas, but I'll highlight some of them. Dr. Tolar mentioned earlier that we are a world leader in bone marrow transplantation. That continues to this day. The trials continue to be remarkable in what happens there. Solid organ transplantation, cell therapy, gene therapy, including for complex and or chronic conditions. Yes. Perfect. Thank you very much. 5 minutes, you said, Dr. Stewart. Great, thank you. And then ECMO, which is heart-lung bypass for patients with emergencies. And you've probably seen this on the news. What we do here is nothing short of remarkable. And the patients that we perform CPR on in our hospital, in our city, in our state, would have died 3 or 4 years ago. It's simply remarkable, and those are your families. And so the thing is, this is all done. We are faculty members just like you. I look in every day, and I'm grateful for this work that I get to do. You can go to the next slide. I want to emphasize as well how inseparable the work we do in clinical care is from research and education. Last year we enrolled almost just over 6,000 new clinical trial enrollees. That's a very large number. That's not existing, that's new clinical trial enrollees. And I think that's incredible because we're bringing care and cures to the patients who need it, to your family, to your loved ones, to members of the university community on this state as well. The Learning Health System is a statewide collaboration that seeks to bring care much more quickly. You know, the things that we discover often take a decade to get into care, and we're trying to do it in days to weeks. And I'll give a specific example of that in a moment. And then lastly, founding trials, and you go to the next slide. We also want to highlight the collaboration across the university in aging work has been mentioned by my colleague. This work is continuing. There's now a new program expanding, searching for a leader. We're very excited about this work. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to share briefly my proudest moments as a university faculty was during COVID. We stood up as university faculty members a COVID hospital in partnership with Fairview. We ran clinical trials within weeks. We had world-leading outcomes that were gotten in collaboration together. I've never been so scared in my life as when I walked and stood in front of those people in the COVID hospital. We had the people, the first patient was actually on their way in the ambulance. It was my job to talk to these people who were going to work there. And at that moment I talked about bravery. I didn't feel very brave. But when I look back in the papers that we've published, the cures we discovered, we were involved in the trials around remdesivir and many other things. We changed the world. And we did that together with our partners. We did that as university faculty. I'm deeply, deeply proud of that work. And perhaps even more importantly, I think that work must continue. It's too important to stop. There's people rounding in the hospital tonight. There's people getting livers tonight, people getting lungs tonight. And I think that work, again, inseparable from research and education, simply must continue. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I want to, so it's going to close? Okay, great.
Thank you. All right, so that was brief, and I realize we've got less than 2 minutes, and so just really want to thank you all for your time and attention. As we've said repeatedly, we are clearly as faculty not here to comment on the negotiations, but just really want to make sure that you understand how invested we are in our work and how that exists within these negotiations that are happening. So the key take-homes, as you see there, independence is key, or interdependence, excuse me, is key to everything we do. Interdependence of these different systems, interdependence of all the schools, and most importantly, interdependence with all of the residents of Minnesota who we are here to serve. Faculty governance is critical, and this is why we are so grateful to be here and to have time with you all as your elected senators from the medical school. And lastly, we're here to talk about the shared future for our school, this university, and our state. Next slide, Amber.
1 minute, Dr. Zakaloff.
Thank you, Dr. Steer. Yeah, so this partnership, as Dean Tolar has already educated us, has been a work in progress for 30 years. We as faculty are really excited to see where it goes. And as you see there, as you've heard from us, this partnership is critical for our research, for our education, for our patient care, and we are really excited to see where the future brings us. And the next slide is the last one. And thank you all.
So I want to thank all of our presenters, and I certainly want to thank the faculty that just stood up here as well, and as well as the dean and the council that presented this information. And just with the chair prerogative, I want to say a couple of things. I mean, first of all, how valuable is it for this body to get to understand fully? I think you hear from across this group of people how incredibly important what the outcome of this is for the medical school, for our health science schools, for our biomedical engineering department and engineering that's shared, for biostatistics, for all of these different departments across the medical school. We are interconnected in many different ways. And the outcome and how we decide this is important and will be felt far beyond any one department or any one clinical group, but really will impact the university as a whole. The other thing I want to say is I'm really grateful to the senators that asked for this special session and to bring it forward, because we are a public university, and at any university we believe in shared governance deeply, and we believe that anything in any, we debate in this forum issues that are of consequence, but not anywhere near often the magnitude of what this is, and yet we certainly cannot have something of the magnitude of what this is not come before this body, and I'm committed to trying to bring whatever happens next before a final deal happens back to this body, and back to what will need to be publicly discussed with our Board of Regents as well. We're a public university. We have service to the full state, which I just can't thank you enough for highlighting in so many ways. What happens here will be of impact to the full state, and therefore it's important for all of you as faculty and senators to understand and to ask the hard questions. I want to thank Dean Tolar for his leadership, but also for his highlighting here that we should ask questions. What will this mean for your practice? Whatever happens, what will it mean for the partnerships and the research that are going on? Whatever happens, what will it mean for your colleagues? What will it mean for your research? And these are the questions that we have to have, and it's the purpose of this body is to be discursive and debate and dialogue and try to understand. So I just really want to thank you for that. I want to highlight also what you bring up here is that every medical school in the country needs a clinical patient base. Some places in the country that's within the university, some places it's a separate partnership, but there is no medical school that operates anywhere in the country that does not also have a patient base, and that's critically important, and those, whether it's a partnership or whether it's in the system, are critically important. And it's mutually beneficial across when the where folks came from and the science that you're bringing from around all of the world then benefits the patient base for which we are serving here tremendously. And I think that really matters a lot. So I just want to thank everyone. And at this point, we open it up to, we'll ask Amber to explain the discussion process and invite her to call on the first speaker. And with that, there may be opportunities to ask folks who presented also more detailed questions, and I can try to navigate that as well. So if people have questions, Amber, what would the process be?
Right, so we will be getting the QR code up here shortly for the discussion. It's also linked in your docket, so you can go ahead and get in line and we'll follow that process like we did in the last meeting. I will be rotating through constituencies as much as possible, and our colleagues, Adina and Donovan, where he went, will be bringing mics to people. Oh, and please come to the end of your row if you can. So the first speaker is Jeremiah Mons, who is here in person. There he is.
Okay. Jeremiah Mons, Faculty Senator. There was a lot of discussion about how there's outreach across the state in several different areas, but I noticed that there are involvements of the medical school in a couple of locations where there weren't any stars, and there was no discussion of the activities going on in St. Cloud or in Duluth. How does that get involved in this whole process? That seems like it was a piece that was dropped out. Is Fairview being asked to fund those activities in some way? I mean, I could imagine that might be a question for them.
Perhaps I'll ask Dean Toller to talk about how the medical school works across other areas of the state and our other locations.
Thank you. Where are you, Jeremiah? Hey, good question. So it's not an omission, you know, it's a part of what we do. The regional campuses that we have two, one in Duluth and one in St. Cloud. They are not connected to the Fairview health system per se. We actually rely on the kindness of the other healthcare systems. In St. Cloud, it's CentraCare, and CEO Holman and I and my team have put together a partnership that Board of Regents have approved, and we have enrolled first 24 students this year, which is for the first time in the last 15 years that we will have more students and then medical doctors trained in the state of Minnesota. At the same time, we are building on the legacy, more than half a century legacy in Duluth, where we have a medical school campus, and there's also a campus for pharmacy. We are adjoining, you know, in that space, and we are adding this year. We are adding year 3 and year 4, which will necessitate discussion with the two healthcare systems that are present in Duluth, which is Asperger's, used to be St. Luke's, and Essentia Health. Does it answer your question? So it does not really, you know, you asked the right question, does it really pertain to the master professional service agreement that we negotiated with Fairview? It does not, in a direct way.
Toller, if I may, I think it was rightly pointed out, and we do have a deep partnership, and I want to reiterate again, you know, we would like a partnership going forward that works with Fairview and is good for them and also good for us. But you have often pointed out in the past the other health systems for which we do a lot of training with. I mean, I met with Hennepin County yesterday. Can you talk to people a little bit about, we certainly have a deep partnership with Fairview, but we also do clinical education and training in other places.
Thank you, Chair. President Cunningham. So the distribution is, Dr. Kornfeld, you know, has touched upon it a little bit. So we, at any time, we would have more than 1,000 medical students in our system, and more than 1,000 of what we call residents and fellows, which is the graduate medical education, and they all need to be placed in the system. So even though our book of business, you know, is about 75%, maybe 80% of the clinical revenue with the Fairview Health, it's about 50% of our trainees that on the graduate medical education train in the Fairview Health. We do rely on, it's a confluence of goodwill and trust that we have developed over years with Hennepin County, with North, with everybody, with partners, health partners, with VA Medical Center, and we work with them. Not, you know, it's not a unilateral relationship, it's a bilateral relationship or multilateral relationship that's beneficial to everyone. So about 50% of our trainees would be on the Fairview side, and another 50% in the other healthcare systems. Thank you.
Next we have Chase Krug, who's a student.
Okay.
There's some chairs if you want to just sit there.
I have a question regarding the medical school funding. So negotiations, a big sticking point is the funding going to the medical school. And Fairview has stated that the annual funding that's going to the school is unsustainable. So in these new negotiations, you're likely going to expect a budget cut. Is the medical school preparing how to absorb that budget cut in the future?
Very good question, and the answer is absolutely yes. We are preparing for the cuts. There are a number of pressures that are coming from within the university. There are cuts that are coming, from the central university to all the colleges, including medical school. There are pressures from the outside. The Fairview partnership is just one of several that we have. It's the largest one, and it is, almost certainly, going to be cut in some ways. You have to, I think, travel with me a little bit mentally and picture where we were before this agreement. We got about $6 million a year, every year from the partnership, and we get about $100 million. It's a big difference. That for the first time put us really in the position that we can invest it in the, Dr. Olson, I think, Zagalov mentioned the learning health system, the ECMO program, the transplant, innovation and other institutes. So we were able to do that. If we have less money, we do what we are always able to do. We are resilient people. We adapt, we flex, we figure it out, and we will do everything possible with what we have, with the limited resources. We will do everything possible to channel it to the benefit of the Minnesotans and betterment of mankind.
Thanks. I'll let you sit back down because we'll probably have some other questions as well. Thank you. And to your point, I think, and to Dean Toller's fine part, those programs that we do, we're able to do because of funding that is generated predominantly by our fine faculty here seeing patients. And with less funding, we would be able to do less. And I mean, that's a question for how we wind up with a final partnership here is we need a partnership that's good for the physician group. We need a partnership that's good for Fairview. We also need a partnership that's able to sustain the fine work of this medical school to be able to serve across the state.
The next person up is Heidi Eschenbacher, Civil Service.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to thank you again for having this meeting. I signed on to request this meeting as well. And one of the things I wanted to highlight is the staff contributions that we all provide to this enterprise. Just this week alone, I ended up dropping off a bunch of samples that happened to come from Fairview to a high school so that they could better understand healthy tumors, healthy organs, and unhealthy organs in a classroom setting here in Minneapolis. And I just wanted to note that a lot of this collaboration extends beyond the medical setting, and it also involves our nurses, our clinicians, our labs, our community engagement partners, and education of our future workforce. So thank you for having this. I know it was emphasized in some other pieces, but I wanted to bring it down to a different level as well, to the community level. And also data agreements. One of the things, I work at the Masonic Cancer Center in workforce development, huge issue for us is the data agreements that we have and our ability to use data and information and samples from all of our partners, including Fairview. So in this process, how can we bolster it to make sure that we have really good, strong agreements for research?
Jacob, do you want to answer that? I'm developing a theme.
Thank you for the question. I can affirm, that the staff, is lifeblood, lifeline, for us all, and I'm deeply grateful for what you do. And going to the schools, serving in the community has been always a dictum for all health science schools, not just the medical school. And staff, is absolutely instrumental in that. The research funding for the databases, since you mentioned Cancer Center, so for everyone, the two largest grants at this university is the CTSI, and the second is the Masonic Cancer Center. Both of them are in the Office of Academic Clinical Affairs, and they are billed as interprofessional. They are not medical school. They are everything, not just health sciences, in fact, but other parts. And the major component of those is the reach out to the community. You briefly saw on one of the slides the Minnesota Cancer Center Clinical Trial Network that my team was able to negotiate with Mayo and state, some years ago, that delivers oncology care across the state. And it all hinges, and CTSI is essentially, that's what it is. You work with the community, and School of Public Health has been incredibly helpful in that direction as well. The research on the data is a challenge and an opportunity. Dean or Dr. Professor Beebe and Dr. Genevieve Melton-New have started about 5 years ago the Learning Health System Center, and that is really the way to look at the de-identified data from the electronic health record and ask a question. Can I personalize and tailor the treatment and the differential diagnosis to the patient that's sitting in front of me right now? So it's a real-time, personalized, tailored artificial intelligence combined, not substituted for, combined with the human intelligence. Can we do that? And for that, you need a lot of investment. It's a lot of computing power. It's a energy intensive thing, and it's a very intense labor, for now. And in these settings, we do need agreements, coming back to your beginning of your question, we need agreements that protect the integrity of the patient data that's, again, de-identified in the legal way, so that we can continue the good work that center and others have done. What it means is, for example, is that we developed, there are 80 women, which is a shame, in this state that used to die, 80. That's 80 mothers that died of high blood pressure at the end of the pregnancy or at the very beginning after delivering a baby. And they all have been misdiagnosed or undiagnosed and lived in the distant rural areas. So what we have done is, with the help of the center, we put a simple wearable on these pregnant women, and we have a central office, if you will. It looks like on a laptop. There's nobody living in that office. And we measure this, and a simple intervention saves lives of 80 women every year in this state. That's what it is for. Another one is the virtual stroke. It's a terrifying experience if you've ever seen somebody getting a stroke, your loved one or your patients or your colleagues, neighbors, for God's sakes. And the time is brain. So the quicker you get somewhere when we can either take out the thrombus or give medication, that is going to determine if you are free from disability and pain and dependency or not, or if you are even alive. So we built what we call virtual stroke program that, again, is exported to around the state. And that is the function of why we need these research data protected. Fair?
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe just sit on the stage up there, Jacob.
I would like other people to speak.
I know, I will. I'll try. We'll see how that goes. So if just have a seat there and we'll see. And I think, the last point really highlights to me, Dean Toller, and I think you highlighted it beautifully, but we are certainly focused on the clinical care continuity and making sure that there's a place for physicians to practice, but there's so much more here at stake in the way that you're highlighting as well. I mean, what the medical school does is certainly very importantly treat individual patients, but also is providing all of this life-saving research and interventions and ingenuity and innovation to folks all across the state, and it's so important.
Next in line is David Reddish, faculty who is here.
Thank you. We've heard a lot about clinical training and clinical practice, but the medical school is very much a deep part of the university and tightly integrated across the university. And I haven't heard anything about undergraduates or non-clinical graduate students, both of whom are integral parts of the medical school, both of whom spend research time in medical labs, learning even basic or fundamental science critical to the medical process. And not all of this is about saving lives. Saving lives is great. I don't want to say saving lives is bad, but there are other things that the medical school also is contributing to that has long-term effects and long-term consequences and integrations across the university. We're talking about faculty. All of these medical school faculty are collaborating with people in many, many other departments. And so what I'd like to hear a little bit about, and I think particularly that's something that this group would be very interested in, is what are the implications and the impacts beyond the medical school and beyond the clinical care and beyond the implications of the clinical care for the state, all of which is important. But there's a very strong, I think, missing piece of this discussion that I know that a lot of this funding that has come in that has allowed labs and other groups to do research beyond clinical care for basic science research, et cetera. Thank you.
I'll maybe offer a brief comment, and then I do think, Jacob, that we'll probably have some more input onto this. But, you know, I'll put my old VPR hat on for a moment. So I used to oversee research across the full university in my last position. And what we know are the kind of funding that comes in that is provided by let's say, a dean to help jumpstart a faculty package or to start up a lab. That money is rarely what actually creates the final innovation. What that does is jumpstart seed funding, create collaborations, and that I know that the faculty across the medical school are then interacting. This is true here and across all great comprehensive universities are interacting deeply with the engineers, with the nurses, with the folks in the school of public health, and they're taking that seed funding that is often provided by the kind of academic support that comes in, and they're turning that into deep collaboration, which is then being used to leverage substantial external funding. So the cancer center here, for example, you know, is a giant NIH grant, and that, you know, there's seed work that's done that helps then bring in that larger grant, which then helps create lots and lots of cures going down. And so, you know, I think I'm sure Dean Toller can give other examples that are more pertinent here, but the kind of funding and the way that you use the academic support, you know, if it were being, and I hope it will not be cut in half, although it's wise to prepare for such things, I hope it will not actually be cut in half as was proposed in recent weeks. But if it did happen, you know, what kinds of things would you see that are happening less, and how would that impact, to the faculty's point, collaborations across the campus?
Madam Chair, Dr. Reddish, you know, great question. You know, the reason I didn't mention it previously is because I've never thought of this being a different part of anything. And the graduate students, for everyone, we have about 500 graduate students, about 300, 400 postdocs, you know, in the medical school alone, and more, you know, obviously in the health sciences at any point. We have a very strong, as Dr. Steer knows well, MD-PhD program. And, you know, from a personal experience, I came here 33 years ago across the ocean, right, to get my PhD, because I never understood why we would put people to different schools, you know, if this is you know, essentially a single thing. To your point, absolutely true. I can assure you, and you can speak to your chairs, you know, 98% of the academic funding, you know, went to the departments and went there in support of things that needed that activation potential, that could not just drive on even a PO one. You know, it just has to have that seed money, if you will. And some of your work, NeuroPrism, you know, being a good example of that, has been, you know, an example of this. So the science, and, you know, because I admire your books, you should read his book, by the way, on consciousness. I can say this, my small dissent, you know, from what you said is that I actually do think that the science saves lives in the basic, in the bench as well, right? You know, that's why we have, anyway, you know, we don't differ on this, I don't think, but, you know, it's so important, you know, to have that mindset that we can embrace all that knowledge that exists at this glorious, noble university and put it in service, you know, of this. But the research funding is absolutely necessity.
And I want to thank you, Dean Toller, and I want to follow up on your point, because I think it's really critical as well. The medical school faculty and labs do engage a lot of our undergraduate students. So there's no doubt that if they were diminished in a substantial regard, that would have an impact on the amount of opportunities that we would have for our undergraduate students, and also to be able to fund graduate student work here going forward. And these are the things that we're all being attentive to now, and are important, and thank you for raising. Also, I'm reminded, my provost reminds me correctly, in addition to the, and two departments, so, and Dean Toller has done a wonderful job in this interdisciplinary collaboration, and I know he believes in it deeply, is in addition to, the medical school has 2 shared departments in engineering, so actually faculty that are, I know, that are faculty are in both places, right? So, so those are faculty that are not clinical faculty, but will be deeply affected in how our engineering school winds up moving forward. And then also in CBS, in the College of Biological Sciences, there are 2 departments there that are shared with the medical school, and will be impacted as, you know, as the future of the medical school goes, they will go as well. And this is why it is a University Senate discussion. Thank you so much. Did I get it right? You got it. Okay. She keeps me in line.
Chair Cunningham, it looks like Dr. Zagaloff might also like to speak to this point, if that's okay.
Sure, please. I don't want to put you folks on the spot. I'm happy to put the dean on the spot, but anytime you want to jump in, let me know.
And certainly, Dean Toller, I have no intention of taking the spotlight away from you, but just to continue.
He's delighted.
Just to contribute some of the Faculty Senate perspective, I think, on this, to go back to question number 1 regarding Duluth and St. Cloud, I want to make sure folks understand that the Faculty Council for the medical school does have elected senators from the Duluth campus already, who have provided a really integral perspective as we've been discussing the changes ahead. We currently do not have senators from the St. Cloud campus. They are largely in the clinical space, and so how their representation will look moving forward is something we are already thinking about. To question number 2 from our student senator in terms of funding cuts, I have deep respect and admiration for the financial knowledge of our executive leaders here, and I'm sure each of you knows when funding cuts are coming, you would love to be involved at the table and thinking about where might we be able to save money and what might that look like. And so specifically, when we think about the Learning Health Systems Center, part of what it's looking at is how do we reduce redundancies and increase efficiency, which has costs associated with it. And then to the third question from my civil service colleague, I was deeply grateful that you mentioned the lab. I want to go back to my work with the Center for Interprofessional Health, where I've gotten to know 2 faculty colleagues from the Medical Lab Sciences program. One became an affiliate faculty of CIH, and then loved it and brought along her lab science colleague. And because of their participation in CIH activities, lots of our students now get to learn about medical lab sciences. And then lastly, question 4 from Dr. Reddish. I want to just make sure that folks are aware of the undergraduate program for pathways students, for individuals who are generally underrepresented in healthcare and are trying to find their way. And nowhere do I think this is more important than if you want to become a therapist. If you want to become a therapist, you can become a psychologist, you can become a social worker, you can become a marriage and family therapist. The list goes on. And so, again, as a part of CIH, we're working on coming up with a module specifically thinking about, so you want to be a therapist, what are the different ways you can do that, and what are the pros and cons? So, thank you.
Sorry, next on the list is Cal Mergendahl, a student.
Hi there. Thank you, Chair Cunningham. We've got a lot of, I think, really kind of nice questions about the importance of the medical school over the past few minutes here. I've got a question I think, unfortunately, is maybe a little bit less nice. I'm wondering if you can comment at all on the recent dismissals of several medical school administrators who hold dual roles within University of Minnesota physicians. I'm also, if any faculty here wish to chime in on that as well, and how that has impacted the organization, I would also be very grateful to hear some of that perspective. Thank you.
I can maybe invite my counsel up. We don't generally comment on personnel matters. I don't know. Jennifer, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, I think that's right. Unfortunately, we're not able to comment directly on personnel matters.
Yeah.
So.
Next in the queue is Alicia Cohen, faculty.
So one of the concerns that I have as a faculty center with the College of Liberal Arts is that we don't know anything about this agreement, and that, or very little that was summarized. And I'm interested in just hearing maybe from the faculty senators how they are feeling about how the agreement was announced, and if they feel like it was unfair to characterize the language that characterized the deal as a hostile takeover of the medical school. If that is unfair, I'd like to understand why that's unfair. If they have concerns about how that, I would like to know what the concerns are that around this deal that we don't know. It's kind of a black box for those of us who are outside of medicine, and I'd like to understand more about that.
So I can speak to that perhaps briefly and of my own opinion, knowing that I'm not a member of the negotiating team, but I have an operational role in the health system overseeing hospital medicine. I think that I'll speak to three, and thank you for that question. I think it's important. I think to speak to three aspects. One is that the University of Minnesota Physicians, again, I'm not speaking for, but just as informational, I'm speaking as university faculty member. University of Minnesota Physicians has multiple clinical contracts. And in general, while the structure of that clinical contract tends to be known and knowable, many of the specifics are not to be shared because of competitiveness and things like that. For example, there's probably, if there's a private practice orthopedics group negotiating with the health system, those terms would not be disclosed. And while I would love to see the whole thing too, I understand that that's simply not how it can work in a highly competitive healthcare marketplace, for which disclosing terms and things like that could put one either at disadvantage competitively, and it's just not appropriate, and no one would want to negotiate with you. So that's number one, I think, just pragmatically, and I find that terribly dissatisfying and true at the same time. Therapy helps, Sasha, you can help with hold those things together. Number two is, I will say that while all of us, identify as university physicians and other healthcare professionals, and believe that dearly, we also are very interested in stability. And stability, not unwise stability, but stability to the setting of 13 months in healthcare is a blink in the eye. And so I think that idea of I was admitting patients last night and thinking about what's this going to look like in 14 months, and the moral obligation we have to continue to care for our patients. And I heard Chairperson Cunningham speak to that, and thank you for that. I think that reassurance is fundamental for all of us, as that's the one part of this that keeps me up at night, because I go to work every day to work for them. I think the third aspect of this is perhaps, and again at the rank and file faculty member level, which is me, I want to speak to the synergistic relationship between UMP and I have dual employment. My check comes from the university, right? But I think my roles as a UMP physician and a medical school faculty member are inseparable. And in fact, I execute my job in both of those. And so I think that the divisions, while there are very real reasons, and I understand those, for leadership and negotiation differences on that, at the rank and file faculty member, most of us just view that as one job. In fact, all of us do view that as one job. And so I think seeing that carried forward is really important to us, because I can't separate my university job and my University of Minnesota physician's job. And I think that's how it should be. Academic medicine is all the time three things, right? It's research, education, and clinical care. And last night I was teaching while taking care of patients, and one of them was enrolled in a clinical trial. I mean, it's perfect. And so I think that inseparability of those is key. And then very, very lastly, I said three, but I'll do four because I'm an internist. That's what I do. The fourth thing is, I think just speaking to the challenge this has been, this whole thing chronically, not the last few months, but chronically, uncertainty has had. We have a great medical school. We have a great university. I think we can be super great. But I think this uncertainty is challenging. And people you deeply respect having this public discourse can be very challenging. And I think the effect on that and our faculty recruitment and retention should not be diminished. So.
Thank you so much. I also want to invite up Dr. Gezi, and I don't know if Jennifer Losey wants to join as well, to talk a little bit about, perhaps what, and I deeply appreciate, by the way, your comments, and also we won't get into stereotypical jokes about internships and interns and 4 points, but it's for a later time. But our faculty do feel that. You feel like it's one job, because all academic faculty, and I felt this when I was an academic faculty too, we do all three of those things. That's the job we have here. So I wonder if you might speak to a little bit the fact that although we are one body, you are actually represented by two legal entities, first of all, and what the difference is between those, because I think people don't understand what that is, and I think Keith can speak to that a little bit as well. And then maybe why there were concerns from what I hear from you on what did this mean? And I understand, the rhetoric in the press is loud, and I just want to say again how heavily I advocated to have nothing come out in the press 2 weeks ago. So just please know your university administration worked probably, through the evening the night before to try to have that press not come out. And have nothing announced before we were able to have more conversations. So I understand the discomfort that caused and the deep uncertainty that faculty have. And I want to just say one more time, there is zero chance that you will not be able to take care of your clinical patients in a year from now at Fairview. We are going to have a clinical contract. But with that, maybe can you describe a little what these entities are and why our faculty feel like one, but actually there's three different groups negotiating, and then perhaps why some of the perspective came out from at the Board of Regents.
Sure, in 2 minutes, but just by way of background, my name is Keith Gezi. I'm a partner with the consulting firm of Alvarez & Marcel, but more importantly, I spent the first half of my career as an academic emergency physician on the faculty at George Washington University. I've also been a clinical faculty member, and I'm currently an adjunct, and I'm still active.
There's a point of order.
So he was part of the team that was put forward here to represent the first 20 minutes. He was part of that. So I'm going to allow him to continue. Thank you. No, this is Q&A, and he's answering a question. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask a parliamentary question?
I'd kind of like to finish the question first. So let's finish the question, and then I'll allow you to ask. Go ahead. Well, I could have Jennifer Losey answer the question, I suppose. Go ahead. What's the question?
Does the chair have the ability to provide speaking privileges without the senator yielding that time?
I want to double check because I think I know our local rules, but I want to check with Miriam for Roberts.
My understanding is she can.
So the chair has the right to invite people to answer questions in Q&A.
The chair of the Hubbard School asked the question. Yeah.
I was curious about
May I proceed?
Please.
Thank you. So I just providing a little bit of my background, and my consulting work is exclusively between academic medical centers and their clinical, or universities and their clinical partners. In terms of the entities which the president referenced, UMP is the designated practice plan designated by the Board of Regents of the medical school. So it's by charter designed to represent the medical school in clinical dealings. It was really chartered as what's called a management services organization, provide the management services for the faculty to practice, billing, collecting, information technology, finance, et cetera. And it's grown to more than that, which is not completely atypical around the country, to be a dual employment relationship. So the original premise was that UMP would represent the physicians clinically, the medical school would still continue to represent the physicians from a and academic perspective. And I want to just reinforce two things that my colleagues here at the university said, which I completely agree with. I would want to and continue to want to be a university doctor, and clinical care is inseparable from research and education. But in terms of the way this was negotiated, clinical care was separated from research and education. And that's been a big concern of the Board of Regents, of the President, and of the university administration. There are some positives about this agreement. There's no question that it provides some stability for the faculty as it relates to clinical care, and it transitions some of the financial responsibility for the CSC joint venture that you've heard about to Fairview. Unfortunately, the way the joint venture was established originally was as a financial loser. Most of the parts of the CSC that aren't part of the joint venture are already owned by Fairview, and there's some nuances of finance that result in those being more profitable than the parts in the joint venture. And there's been a commitment on Fairview's part to invest about $1 billion in capital, which is much needed in those facilities. Based on the results that some other independent providers have done or independent advisors have done, it's not enough, and about half of that amount needs to be done every year for routine capital replacement. But you asked what some of the challenges are. The agreement eliminates the university as a party to the agreement. The university is not a party to it. To this day, almost a month after it was announced, the university has still not received a copy of that agreement. It eliminates the Board of Regents' role in government and the dean's role in management. It increases Fairview's control over UMP. A private company has control over the faculty practice, and it weakens its position for future negotiations. It diminishes UMP's ability to sustain a meaningful independent business practice, and as it's currently configured, it reduces the academic support that's guaranteed by almost 50% and would require Fairview to perform at a level financially that it has not performed since 2016.
I believe Dr. Zagaloff would like to make a point as well.
Just to add another piece to this idea of, as a common paymaster faculty as well as Dr. Olson in terms of my primary appointment home being with the university, but also having an appointment with physicians. This idea was really critical when we crafted the resolution that we're going to have discussion about on Monday, because even within the FAC, we had to have really serious discussion about what binds FAC together is that we are university senators. Not everyone on FAC is a common paymaster employee. And so one of the things that we had a lot of conversation about was to whom was that resolution written. As the chair of FAC, I have received, as the CC, many emails that have gone to both Chair President Cunningham and Dr. Greg Beelman, the interim CEO of UMP. Our resolution, though, did not go to Dr. Beelman because we were writing as university senators only, not in our role with UMP. So as faculty, we do understand that there is a really important difference between those two pieces.
Thank you for that clarification. And I think when you say common paymaster, so people understand, is the UMP component of the payment, and then the university faculty component of the payment. And as you pointed out, there are faculty in the medical school that have both, and then there are faculty in the medical school that do not have that second component and are represented, for example, our basic science faculty that are faculty but not represented by UMP, if I can try to make that clarification.
Before I go on to the next person, I'm just going to note that we have 10 minutes left allotted for this discussion. And next up is Subri Subramanian, faculty.
So, Subri Subramanian from the Department of Surgery Medical School. I want to personally take this time to thank the President, the Provost, and then the Dean, who has been really working hard to make sure the medical school is strong and one of the leaders in the world. So with that, hopefully the agreement moves forward and then three parties likes it and agrees and signs it. But that's for the next 10 years. And sooner than what we can imagine, we'll be sitting in the same room discussing a lot of issues again, and things will be again coming to the same discussion, right? So it's a never-ending story. Are we thinking about buying back the hospital? how much push we are going to make to get the hospital back or even to build a new hospital. It's not going to take much time if we start today. In another 5 years, we'll have our own hospital, but we need to start today. So is the administration thinking about it? And that would be the legacy for the leaders here to have our own hospital built. So that's my.
I'm going to maybe answer that at a really high level, and thank you for the kind words. I want to say, I know the faculty have been working really hard, and UNP has been working really hard, and Dean Toller and Dr. Bielman also have been working really hard, and I believe everybody wants the same common goal. Everybody wants strong health for the state, a healthy system, a healthy physician practice, and a strong medical school and good for the state. So thank you for that. We are excited. I'm hoping by the end of the week we'll be able to announce a new mediator and mediation process. I'll say that, and then it will be Tuesday. But I'm hoping shortly we will be able to announce that. And in that, there'll be a multitude of discussions about what those next steps are that you're talking about. I think the dean and Jennifer presented some of the kinds of conversations that have happened in the past year, which have certainly included, before I got here, conversations about whether the buildings that were provided before should go back and whether there should be joint ownership. And I have heard repeatedly, and I don't think I've heard any dissent about this actually, which is a miracle, that most faculty, I do believe, and UNP Physician believes, and the dean has mentioned also, that there does need to be additional facilities, and that there are not currently enough beds in the system, and that should be a consideration going forward. We'll have to see how negotiations go and what happens, but I am well aware of that. I've had conversations with the chairs that are well aware of that, and it is not currently addressed in the conversations that came forward last week in that deal, and it is something that we can all think deeply about without promising anything for sort of the outcomes of that. So thank you for that. Did you want to add something? You looked at me. Oh, you looked at me like you might want to, and I just want to make sure that there's good opportunity for you to continue to give input.
Thank you. Speaking again as my personal faculty member opinion, I work only in the hospital. I would love to have a new hospital, and at the same time, we will, in my opinion, only ever be successful as part of an integrated health system. Because the kind of medicine we do and the kind of training we do and the kind of research we do relies on a large primary care network, an integrated specialty care network, and then a network of primary, secondary, tertiary, and then finally quaternary care is what we do. And so most of the patients that we care for here can't be cared for elsewhere, as you know. And so I think that while it is, facilities are important to think about, I actually think the integrated system, in my personal opinion, is more important because we have to think about where those patients come from, where we do the work, and a bright, shiny hospital alone in Minneapolis doesn't necessarily reach the people elsewhere in the state. And so it's an important part, but I think this is a series of yes ands rather than an either or. There's very few successful standalone academic medical centers without some degree of integrated health systems.
And I just want to resonate that completely and just tell you, there's no discussion of having an isolated. That is a very 1985 idea, and today all academic health centers have to be part of a large patient care base. There's a multitude of ways to get to that patient care base, but certainly a facility alone is not an answer. It has to be connected. Yeah, but I still understand that you may need more beds. Oh, we do. Yeah, and you do, right.
I would just add another to Dr. Olson's yes and. I would make sure that folks are aware that there was the governor's task force a little bit in our recent past that was deeply engaging of multiple health sciences schools and would be a really exciting thing to return to. I will make a point here that I am currently a student in the School of Public Health, which Senator Beebe is my mentor, so yay public health. And then the and is we can talk about facilities. There is a lot more that goes into healthcare. The electronic medical record is an enormous lift. During COVID, much was written about the really important individuals who keep our healthcare systems clean. And so there's all these other factors to be thinking about besides the facilities.
Next on the list is Ron Krebs, faculty member.
Thank you so much, and thanks for this really enlightening presentation, especially for those of us from the College of Liberal Arts who is not carefully following all of the negotiations over the course of these many months. Can you, just two quick questions. One, can you shed a little light on why the Attorney General directed Fairview and UMP to negotiate separately in September, and what the logic of that might have been as you understand it? And secondly, the conversation about academic support is obviously, it's of great concern. Can you say more about sort of the larger national market for academic support? To what degree if we are projected to have an arrangement that is less than what peer institutions are getting from their private sector partners, why might that be the case? Again, these are questions born of ignorance as a CLA faculty member. Thank you.
Do one of you want to answer sort of, I think what you're asking there is a benchmark question of when our medical school here wants to have academic support, is that something that all medical schools get? Is this something we're uniquely asking for? And if other medical schools get it, and by the way, they all do from a clinical partner, what is sort of the typical range? And I don't know, Jennifer, if you know those numbers offhand. If not, I know Dr. Gezi does. Yeah.
I would say this, that if you've seen one academic medical center, you've seen one academic medical center in terms of the relationship. The models are all different all over the country. But $100 million, which is the current amount of academic support, is not unusual. I mean, there are academic health systems in this country who provide hundreds of millions of dollars of academic support. So that in and of itself is not unusual. And I won't begin to answer the question about why the AG directed. I think that's a question that should be directed to the AG.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that sums it up as I understand it from Dr. Gezi and from other folks we've worked with. The $100 million is actually on the very much the low side. I think the national average of our peers is often closer to 200. Is that correct? From what we have, certainly dipping down into the levels that are being suggested without other models or other support or other input I have to wonder and ask the dean to wonder with me as we would think about that is exactly how we would manage to keep up the quality of our research and all the efforts that we're doing with half the funds. And I think that is the question. And I don't have a further answer than what was given in terms of what is in the mind of an attorney general is well over my pay grade. I understand the dean is on the line. One more question. Yeah, and Connie Delaney, who was mentioned the academic health, the governor's task force, and I wonder if we could allow that online comment from her.
Yeah, you're welcome to unmute and speak.
Dean Delaney?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, President Cunningham. And I know we are refurbing. I had the honor of sitting on the governor's task force. Thank you for the person that brought up the report. That is totally public. And it reaffirmed the importance of the University of Minnesota to the health of this state. It reaffirmed the necessity of the med school. And it reaffirmed the partnership of the other health sciences schools and the breadth of expertise on this campus, computer science, engineering, etc. And my last quick comment is that the university followed up within the health sciences and the university to respond to those recommendations. And many of your comments and questions today align with where those recommendations were trying to go. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Dean Delaney, and appreciate also your service on that task force, helping to represent the university and the interprofessional nature of our health science schools. And Jacob, Dean Toller also served on that. And out of that thinking is a lot of what sort of is brought forward today as we think about the future of this agreement is how do we meet the good recommendations that were put forth out of that task force. which were envisioned to help to think about how academic health supports the health of the state, which I know you all are deeply passionate about and appreciative of.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, everybody. That ends the discussion for this part of the meeting.
Wonderful. So I want to just thank everyone again for that deep discussion and kind of dialogue and discourse that I think is really healthy for this body to have and questions to engage in. Item 7 is a discussion and action on the resolution of the threat safety protocols. Professor Lear will introduce this item.
Thank you, President Cunningham. So I am here to introduce the final proposed version of the Threat Safety Protocol resolution. I was hoping this would be easy, but of course, nothing is easy. So the Senate Consultative Committee talked about this proposal several times. We had Executive Vice President Goldman, Interim Chief Swanson, and members of the University of Minnesota Police Department talk to us about their threat safety protocol. You have the resolution in your docket, so I'll just read the last bit. Be it further resolved that the administration communicate the results of the review to governance bodies in a way that does not diminish the effectiveness of said protocol. This morning, I had a proposed friendly amendment from Professor von Dassau, who was the originator of the motion at the September meeting, basically adding to that last bit, instead of to governance bodies, to the University Senate. I have no objection to that, but I would like to consult with the Senate Consultative Committee on that. I think the thinking that we had was that it should go to the Senate Consultative Committee, perhaps the Faculty Consultative Committee. Those committees have the option of going to closed session, and so there might be more discussion at those, but we had no intention as a group to keep there from being a report to the full university Senate, and so I think that adding language that the some report should come to the full university Senate is absolutely appropriate. So with that, I don't know exactly how to proceed, but fortunately, we have the pleasure of having two parliamentarians with us. So we could, I think, vote on the motion as it is. We could have an option to change the motion. I'm not a big fan of wordsmithing in real time, so I'm open to suggestions from the group. Again, I have no objection to having the University Senate be in the loop on the communication from the administration.
I'll also note we might have a motion to refer to committee.
Yes. Or we could have a motion to refer to the Senate Consultative Committee, and it could be then taken back to this group at the next Senate meeting.
Yeah, can I consult with the parliamentarian there? What
Please.
is your recommendation?
We could vote on the friendly amendment if that wants to be. He can accept the friendly amendment.
Do you want to accept making the motion? You can just accept it. You're the one making the motion. You can accept it.
I can accept
The friendly amendment. Well, yeah, if it's offered as a friendly amendment.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I could.
You have a little bit of a strange.
But you were suggesting that it should go to the committee for discussion.
Yeah, because there was some other wordsmithing there
Okay.
too.
I see.
So, and I don't,
So you were bringing a motion forward, but you're now suggesting that the motion should be brought to
I'm
committee?
suggesting that the motion be brought back to the committee for some small wordsmithing and then brought back to this body.
And that would happen at the meeting and the next.
And that would happen at the, and then that would come back at the next meeting.
That's my,
So
that would be my
do we need a
intention.
vote on that?
Yes.
I-
Well, it would be good to know if the assembly wants that to go back to the committee. Right.
Okay, so I guess we need a vote on whether the assembly would like it to go back to committee to have the additional language added, otherwise it could be discussed as it is today. Is that right?
So the vote would be, the majority vote is required.
So a majority vote is required for it to go back to the committee.
Thank you.
So we're going to do that by a show of hands?
He just made a motion.
There he is.
It's coming from.
So-
We're voting to take this back to committee to make these small changes before it comes back to the full University Senate. And I could read the changes if you would like.
British Parliament were not.
Yes, please do
All
that,
right.
because the motion is, everyone should have, right,
So.
yeah, and then, so this
You-
is the
so
changes to that.
In the first be it resolved thing, or paragraph, the motion in the agenda reads, in light of the increased threat level in the current political environment, and identify and make plans to implement any resulting changes to those protocols. The new motion says, in the current political environment and implement any necessary changes. So it just takes out the word identify and make plans. So it just skips words. That's great. And then the second proposed change is the administration communicate the review and any changes to the protocol for discussion as an agenda item in a future University Senate meeting in a way that does not diminish the effectiveness of said protocol. So it specifies that it be brought back to a future University Senate meeting in a way that does not diminish the effectiveness of said protocol. And I guess, if I'm speaking for myself, what I would prefer is to communicate the results of the review to governance bodies, which is then, including a report out to the University Senate in a way that does not diminish the effectiveness of said protocol. So
you're proposing that amendment?
no, I'll just leave it as the way that Professor Von Dassau said, because I don't think that eliminates other things. So I will read this again. Be it resolved that the administration review the university's threat assessment and response protocols in light of the increased threat level in the current political environment and implement any necessary changes to those protocols. Be it further resolved that the administration communicate the review and any changes to the protocol for discussion as an agenda item in a future University Senate meeting in a way that does not diminish the effectiveness of said protocol. The whereas statements remain as is in the current agenda. And I am fine with either one. So if you want me to accept the friendly, I'm sorry, I'm not, pardon?
Are you now accepting our amendments?
Yes, I would prefer to go to the SCC because, you know, they've wanted input in these kinds of decisions. But I personally have no objection to these amendments.
So the motion is, can somebody please clarify? The motion is on the resolution with the friendly amendment. With the friendly amendment. Okay, so that is the motion.
And now I guess.
Okay, so now we can proceed to debate on that, on the resolution as a whole with the friendly amendment, correct?
Yep, sure.
And so we can have people get into the queue, and Amber will call on the first speaker.
I also, at the same time, am trying to copy the new text into the live thing, so I'm, just give you a sec, but,
Go do the queue first.
no, I'm gonna, so first we had Ava in the queue, but I'm not sure if you were, did you want to say, or, yeah, go ahead.
Wait, let's get a mic so people online can hear.
Yes, that's what I do. That's what I am going to try to
I
do.
was
Yes,
expecting
that's what I
to
wanted
read
try.
the amendments, but now that our SCC chair has accepted them and read them to the body, there is no need for me to read the amendments. We can go on to the next person.
All right,
Thank you.
Next up was Mark Borello. Oh.
We will get to a vote. Is there any further discussion in the queue?
There is. Next up is Michael Galope.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the SCC for helping improve it, and I thank Perry for accommodating this. I just want to make sure that when we complete the review, that we have a chance to discuss it in the University Senate. So just getting some specificity. So thanks.
Next is Chase Krug, and I'm still working on copying and pasting.
I was just going to add that I approve of the amendments. I think they're good. If there's no further discussion, I'll move to call the question.
Y'all still have to wait for me to copy and paste.
Okay, so technically that means we need to take a
Jacqueline, we
vote.
need to thread
Yeah.
the resolution vote.
We could take a vote to end debate, but is there any first in the queue? No.
There's no one else in the queue, and I think
If there's no further debate,
If there's no objection.
and if there's no objections,
We'll proceed.
then we can proceed to a vote. I'm not seeing any objections. And there were even support from the floor in two different ways. So with that, we can proceed to a vote, which we are going to do by a voice vote. I will ask everyone online to unmute themselves in advance. Give people a moment to do that. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. I believe the ayes carry the nays. I don't believe we need a counted vote for that, and so with it, I believe the motion passes. Thank you all so much. Okay. Item number 8 is a discussion and action on the proposed changes to the Board of Regents policy, research involving human participants. Deborah Dykes, Executive Director of the Human Research Protection Program, will give a brief background. And I don't know if she's online or in person.
She is online.
On Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to ask for your support for a proposed change to the board policy on research involving human participants. The reason for proposing the change is that the current version of the policy does not communicate that the University of Minnesota IRB can cede its review authority to an external IRB. So this authority is required by 2 federal mandates. The first was a 2018 requirement by the National Institutes of Health for federally funded research requiring IRB review. The second built on that NIH requirement and was found in the revised common rule, again, for single IRB review of federally funded multi-site human research studies, which took effect in January 2020. So this university, like all others that receive federal funding for human research, needed to be ready and willing to rely on an external IRB in order to comply with those mandates. We have been relying on external IRBs in situations that are appropriate for that to be done since 2018. But the board policy does not at this moment include the authority that the IRB has. And so what we're asking to be done right now is to make that policy complete and to add that our university IRB may rely on an external IRB when it is required by federal mandate and also with appropriate interinstitutional agreements. So we have detailed internal requirements for relying on an IRB, for an external IRB. It's not like it just happens automatically. There's a review process that's guided by documents that are linked in the board policy that I believe you all have a copy of. And one of the requirements that I wanted to call out, which I have in previous consultation sessions of this policy change, one of the requirements is that the external IRB, there has to be evidence that they meet a standard which we have implemented as the accreditation standards that our IRB follows and is accredited by. In circumstances where an IRB is not accredited by AHARP, the organization that accredits our IRB, we do ask for evidence that that IRB meets standards which are comparable to those of accredited IRBs. So there are other other details about how decisions are made about when it's appropriate to rely and when not. But those, as I said, are detailed and found in the toolkit documents that are linked to the board policy. So that ends my remarks. I hope that this background information will be useful to you as you consider the proposed change. I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you so much. We'll now proceed to debate. We'll use the same process as for the last agenda item.
All right, it is the debate queue, so you have a link and we are getting the QR code up. Maybe there won't be any debate, but we'll wait a minute to see. That was awesome. I'm not seeing anyone in the queue yet. I'll give it just a few more, a little bit longer. All right.
Not seeing any.
Wait,
any
we got one.
ones.
She's, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
The queue is too slow.
Yeah, I just have a logistical question about the document that's linked. I'm just wondering why this one is still open for markup. There's other comments that are not Deborah's that are still open. The copy we saw in in Senate Research Committee just had the proposed change, so I'm just wondering why the linked copy is open and has live comments in it.
Now, perhaps Deborah, can you answer that?
It's an error on my part. I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was an expectation. I mean, I believe that there was discussion about those open comments that is actually recorded in the minutes that were also part of this agenda.
Thank you so much. So maybe, I don't know, to the Senate office, will they see eventually a clean copy?
We don't usually change retroactively what's in the minutes or the docket, but the clean copy would be on the policy website.
All right. Thank you so much. Seeing nobody else in the queue, we can please proceed to the vote. This vote is only for members of the Faculty Senate. This again will be a voice vote, so I'll ask everyone online to unmute themselves in advance. With that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Great, and with that, the motion carries. Thank you all so much. Item 9 is my report. Thank you all so much. And, I'll note I got some questions on this earlier on. This was moved by the Senate agenda. I do not set the agendas. The Senate sets the agenda, and this was moved to after the health discussion to allow that discussion, I think, to happen for people's time frame. A lot of my remarks and the provost remarks, et cetera, were condensed today for time because I think that was an important discussion, and the Senate thought it was an important discussion to change. So just some high-level report outs on my end. We're very excited that the strategic roadmap was approved by the board of Regents in the November meeting. So Elevate Extraordinary 2030 will now be the university strategic roadmap for the next several years. I know many schools, each campus is working on developing their own campus plan that sits into this. And schools underneath that are working on their plans. And so I hope you will work and be excited about that participation. We're hearing a lot of great things about how schools are leaning into that work going forward. The provost and I continue to do faculty forums, which I have to say have been a joy to do. I've really been working this year on how we can engage more with faculty. We're having an open faculty forum, including staff in some as well, every other month. They are just sort of scheduled throughout the end of the year, hopefully throughout the next years as well. open to about the first 150 or so people that sign up, in-person meetings. I'm doing them on other campuses when I'm on other campuses. So excited to have your opportunity. Please do sign up for those and come, and we'll talk about whatever the issues are of the time. And more importantly, I'll get to hear from you. We're very excited today. We announced our new Vice President of Government Relations, came out publicly, Erin Sexton. So please look for that announcement. She was most recently a senior in government relations of external relations at the Mayo Clinic, and we're excited to have her join us in early of January of this year and continue on the very important work we have working with policy and legislators. And so with that, that concludes my report, and I'm open for 5 minutes of questions.
Discussion. The discussion queue. I'm going to get the QR code up real quick. It's also linked in your docket. There it is.
Another important point before we go to questions while that's coming up is there is a reception with cookies to follow, so make sure you stay around for that. Yeah, I think that, the one other thing I want to mention as we're getting people into the queue here is I sent a message out yesterday to the community at large. I've been hearing from a lot of our faculty and staff and students in their reading of the news. There's a lot of fear and anxiety in the community right now, particularly in our immigrant community. And first, I want to empathize with that group and empathize with the community at large. I know that these are difficult times. I hear from our students, some who are afraid to come to classes and some faculty that are afraid to come in to teach. And I know this is a difficult time for our faculty and staff and students in our community. And I know there are communities that are being called out in the news, but I also know and heard deeply that the current fear and anxiety is not limited to any one of our communities, but really crosses many of our communities. And so with that, the message I put out yesterday was really meant to be focused and supportive of all of our community and all of those in our community that I know are feeling increased anxiety, and increased fear and increased wondering kind of how the world and the news will affect them and if it will affect them. With that, in that message yesterday, we sent out information specifically for our community on what their rights are, on what they perhaps should know during this time. This has been posted on our ISSS website for quite some time. We also have these little red cards, which are outside, which have been printed. There's, I think, a stack of them outside now. There's also a QR code, I think, that is posted in many of the schools for, people want to know what to do if they're approached by a federal agent and what their rights are and what their rights are not. And so this little handy-dandy cue card can help people with that information. I encourage people to take those and give them out to whoever they feel helpful. It's also on the website, on the ISSS website. And the QR code will be with Amber?
Yep.
Is that right?
I shared it with you, so
Oh.
you can send it out at some point. I shared
Okay.
it with you during the meeting, so.
I have not been keeping up on chat or
Yeah, and I know that's been, as I've gone around to schools, I've seen it posted in the lobbies, et cetera, in schools for people to be able to get the information. So we can try to support each other. And with that, I think it's a time for increased kindness across our community and increased empathy and increased understand that every of our human situations are slightly different and valued and important, and how we can support each other during what is a complicated time. And so with that, I'm open to questions.
First, I have Emma Malls. Emma, were you still in there from before? Okay. That's what I thought, but I want to make sure. So next, I have Cal Mergendahl, a student.
Hi there. Thank you again, President Cunningham. My question is related to recent events on the Morris campus where I did my undergrad. Some time ago, maybe a month or two, I've lost track of time, it doesn't exist anymore. I received notice I found rather surprising that the chancellor at the Morris campus, Chancellor Janet Erickson, was stepping down in a manner that I found was rather abrupt, rather unexpected for somebody who had only been in position for about 2 years. and stepping down in the middle of the academic year, which I also found to be quite unusual. Now is obviously university policy not to comment on personnel affairs and if there are any reasons that were not disclosed for this very abrupt departure. But I'm wondering if you can comment at all on the decision by which the next Morris Chancellor, currently Dean Rodriguez, I believe, was appointed, and the rationale for kind of having that process be behind closed doors, rather unexpected for most members of the community, at a time when the Morris campus has been undergoing a lot of leadership transitions over the past few years, and at a time when having a steady hand at the helm would certainly be useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Chancellor Morris has served in the first as interim and then as chancellor for nearly 5 years now. So she is stepping down in January, and with that we needed to appoint a replacement for her, and Dean Rodriguez has stepped up to do that. It is not, and that needed to be done in a rather short time frame. It is not a 5 or a 10-year appointment, but we wanted to take care. Typically, what would be done in this time is you would put somebody in an interim appointment. But knowing how much concern the Morris campus has and and the pressures that they're under, we felt that it would be more important, although it's only a 2.5-year appointment that he's in, which some people would consider an interim appointment, that we give him the full title of chancellor for him to be able to not be slowed at a time where any slowness in decision or the inability to make decisions because you're not in the permanent position could significantly hamper the campus during a critical time. So I want the community to know, Surly, first of all, we're quite excited for Dean Rodriguez's service. As you know, he's the Dean of CHCD here. He's a graduate of Morris. He was the student body president at Morris and is well known to that community. And he'll start in January. And with that, whoever his successor is, we will certainly have broad community input and a traditional process for. Thank you for the question.
You want one more, or? You want one more?
One more, sure.
Okay. Next up is Amelia Montez, faculty.
Yes, thank you, President Cunningham. I am Chair of Chicano and Latino Studies, and before I ask my question, I just want to say that yesterday I and another faculty member of mine, colleagues, we had to handhold and take students to classes because they were so frightened about going to class. And I think it's very important that you hear these stories. Can information be added to classrooms, such as map of exits in case of an emergency? Or how should instructors handle procedures for students or others with disabilities? Could classrooms be equipped with first aid kits? If classrooms cannot currently be locked and/or blocked from the inside, can there be some simple supplies to secure the doors or open break windows? Because we are expecting things like this to happen, especially now that I find myself, after teaching over 30 years, that I have to escort students to their classes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. I do know that our Vice President of Finance and Operations and our police chief, for all sorts of issues in classrooms, are working on putting QR codes in every classroom so that people know what their exits are or how to manage the particular classroom they're in. And that's a process that was started actually last summer with input from students broadly, not related to the issue that you're talking about, but to the issue in general. And I can bring your questions back to the folks that do safety and security and try to get back to an answer. Thank you for your question. I do appreciate that many of our students are having a very difficult time, and I ask all of us again for kindness and empathy with them, and thank you for your support of our students. With that, thank you very much. Item 10 item 11 is the SCC and FCC's chair report, and in the interest of time, Professor Leo has submitted a written report today, which is available below and online, correct?
Yep.
Item 12 is a statement from the Disabilities Issues Committee and is presented for information. Item 13 concerns a report of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Professor James Leo, chair of that committee, is here to say a few words about the report. He's on Zoom. Are we able to?
Good afternoon, senators and colleagues. I hope you can hear me. So I am Professor James Lee, the chair of the Senate Judicial Committee. Our committee hears the grievances of faculty members who feel that they've been mistreated in matters of tenure, promotion, and discipline in a manner contrary to the Faculty Tenure Code. In many cases that come before our committee, we issue recommendations to the president, who then chooses whether or not to impose the actions that have been recommended. If the president imposes actions less favorable to the faculty member than those we recommended, we are directed by the Tenure Code to publish the president's action in the docket of the Faculty Senate. And so that's what I'm here doing right now. As we resolve a case where the president imposed some of what we were recommended, but not everything. We are entering a written letter into the docket, and this describes what occurred in this case accurately and as thoroughly as need be while maintaining confidentiality. I hope that many of you will read this two-page account. Not heavy reading. I'll say in summary that while approving a recommended remedy of a tangible nature, the president declined to implement remedies that could be construed as more nominal or symbolic. Although we of course regret that the president came to this judgment, we acknowledge that this disagreement is arguably over a matter of judgment, and we look forward to working with the president on the many cases that are now before our committee. I have to teach a class. I can take questions by email. There are many James Lees at this university. I'm the James Lee in the psychology department, or maybe more helpfully, the one on the webpage of the Senate Judicial Committee. Thank you.
Much for Professor Lee, and also thank you for your service on the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's an important committee, and I appreciate your and your colleagues' time on that. Items 14 to 16 concern policy updates and are presented for information. Item 17 concerns 2 new policies and is presented for information. Item 18 is an information item from the Senate Archives. Item 19 is old business, of which there is none. Item 20 concerns new business. Please note that any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those voting and present. Is there any new business?
I move to add, my name is Vivi Ganeshananthan. I'm a faculty senator from CLA, and I'd like to move to add approval of a statement of support for the Somali and Latino communities of Minnesota and our campus for immediate consideration.
So all new business is referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those voting and present. Yeah. Shall we do that by?
We have a form, yep.
Okay.
Jacqueline, will you put up the, what is it called? It's the new business to consider QR code. Okay. Let's give it a little bit for people to get to the form and vote. I'll give maybe 10 more seconds. to stop the form. That 63.5% yes. So we're very close, but it doesn't quite carry.
So with that, it's referred to SCC for future discussion at that time. With that, unless there's any other further business, this concludes our meeting. Seeing no other further business, we're currently adjourned. There are cookies and a reception. Thank you. Thank you all so much.